And let me say this in English so you can understand what I'm saying.
I have translation.
No, I know you have translation, but I just want to make sure you get it right. There will come a day that we will see far more radical extremists and terrorists coming out of Europe because of the lack of decision-making, trying to be politically correct, or assuming that they know the Middle East and they know Islam and they know the others far better than we do. And I'm sorry, but that's pure ignorance.
Well, Minister Al-Jubeir, I'm not a European politician. What kind of advice?
Lucky you.
What kind of advice would you give to European politicians to maybe make sure that this ignorance doesn't continue?
I think there has to be balance between rights and between law enforcement. I'll give you an example. We get criticized. We were criticized in France for having supported all these extremist mosques or Islamic institutions in France for years. And we said, show me one and we'll shut it down the next day. Lots of talk, but no evidence. When the French Senate did an investigation, they discovered that less than 1% of funding for French Islamic institutions came from the Gulf. Most of it came from North Africa and Turkey, because that's where the vast majority of French Muslims came from. But for years, the charge was made that it came from Saudi Arabia and maybe other countries in the Gulf, and the fiction became reality. We have a policy in Saudi Arabia of zero tolerance for extremists. If somebody is an imam in a mosque and is preaching hate and violence, they get dismissed, reprimanded, reprogrammed, and then dismissed if it doesn't work. And we've dismissed thousands of them. And I say to people in Europe, European country, if you have, they accuse us of exporting extremist preachers, imams, they call them preachers. We say to them, show me, and if they're not a German citizen or French citizen or British citizen, deport them. That's what we would do. If they're your citizen, then stop them from preaching hate. But then they go into, well, no, we don't want to infringe on their freedom of expression. Well, it's either, if they preach, it's hatred, and if you stop them from preaching, it's, we can't do that because of freedom of expression. So then stop complaining. That's what we're up against in a number of countries.
Historic speech in mere moments.
And we're going to be playing it right here live on this channel very shortly. He was the last guest to arrive for the Arab Islamic American Summit luncheon. Here, there you see greeting the King of Saudi Arabia, as he has so many other times, and then quickly thereafter taking his seat as the guest of honor for this luncheon, and he will be the keynote speaker at that luncheon, addressing the entire world and the Arab world.
Yeah, we now want to bring in former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, a perfect voice for this morning as we await this big speech. Speaker, what do you think of this trip so far, and what do you hope to hear in just a few moments?
Well, first of all, the most important single statement was Egyptian President al-Sisi, who said Donald Trump is a unique man. He achieves the impossible, and I think that's a remarkable comment, which I hope the American news media will take seriously and think long and hard about. The combination of the Saudis and the Americans bringing together virtually every leader in the Arab world for this summit, and the speech that I know the president will give in the very near future, I've seen parts of it. It is historic and remarkable, and I think that it sets the stage for us to decisively defeat radical Islam and do so in alliance with the moderate Islamists who are going to be gathered at this particular event. Finally, of course, if you're the president and you're worried about jobs, the various contracts they're signing are extraordinary steps towards helping the American economy keep growing.
Right, that underlines this. Trump is going to present in just a few minutes, and it reads this way. That means honestly confronting the crisis of Islamist extremism and the Islamist terror groups it inspires. And it means standing together against the murder of innocent Muslims, the oppression of women, the persecution of Jews, and the slaughter of Christians. How will that be received, Mr. Speaker?
Well, I think it's going to be received pretty well because finally, after years of talking with them, the major leaders in the region understand that these radicals are a direct threat to them. I mean, the Saudis aren't just acting out of the goodness of their heart. They're acting to survive because they have a two-front war. They have radical Islamists on the one front who would like to overthrow the regime, and they have Iran on the other front who would like to occupy the country. And so they have been forced by reality into becoming our allies. And let me note, by the way, because I already watched one of the other networks trying desperately to draw a gap between what Trump said as a candidate and what Trump is saying here. This is a very strong, very direct speech being given right there in the face of all of these major leaders. He pulls no punches.